Welcome to this week's episode. We had a great week of baseball, ton of home runs. We're talking all divisions, our prediction. Trent, we're going to save the NL for last because that's where all the good teams are. Let's discuss the AL East. We have the Yankees and Red Sox. We've got the Rays. A lot of people are excited about the Rays. I don't think they're really, I like that they tried, which is refreshing. And they tried by spending money. They actually brought in some pitching, which they needed. But they already were a good pitching team. So I think the Rays will get close, but I still think the Yankees and Red Sox will really outswing them.
Yeah,
so what do you think?
The way I see it right now is that there's just a lot of teams across baseball with a lot of flaws, and the AL East is no exception to that rule. So you're talking about the Rays. Well, the Rays, they have some pitching. They have some really good starting pitching coming into the season. You know, they have the reigning AL Cy Young, Blake Snell, who's pitching for peanuts. Tyler Glasnow, who's pitching for peanuts. And Charlie Morton, who's not going to be on any kind of big deal. Well, the Rays are still only paying $59 million in salary.
That's a joke.
Yeah, for this year for their roster. But this first weekend, they looked really good. They found a way to win a bunch of games.
You brought up off air, though, that the Rays might want to look at Kimbrel, since why not? They're only spending in the 50s. You might as well just spend half that on a pitcher. Like, why not?
Yeah, I think that's something.
There's no risk.
I definitely think that's something the Rays should consider with that low payroll. Is they might as well, if they can figure out a way to get Kimbrel in there for a year or two, even if it is for a high salary. I mean, you're paying your team nothing. The Rays looked strong, had a 3-1 series win against the Houston Astros, and that's something where you're facing one of the best teams in the American League, and you perform. So if you can bolster your roster, a roster that finished third in a stacked AL East last year, and really would have made the playoffs in any other division.
Oh yeah,
easily.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, they would have been one of the better teams in the playoffs last year.
That's why I think that the baseball playoffs, I think basketball's headed there. They need to just go 1 through 16 or whatever they need to do. The best team, you can't have the third best team in a division where it's just stacked. Just like the NL East this year, you can't have the best team, third best team, just not even make the playoffs because they're just unfortunate to be in this division. There's teams that are just making the playoffs that just have no business. We're gonna go into the AL Central, and we've got teams like the Twins and the Indians, and we discussed off air that the Indians were probably going to be right there at the top in the end. We both agreed the Indians, but at the same time, they have no real business making the playoffs, and I'm really worried that the fact that teams like the Twins, they're not necessarily ready to beat those other teams in the other divisions, so I don't think they belong to making that tournament. So what do you think about Major League Baseball just shifting away from the divisions?
I think that's definitely an interesting idea. The thing that you have to consider going through that is that these teams are playing the bulk of their schedule against their own division.
Right.
So there is something to the divisions versus the other sports where the game is weighted towards the division. It's weighted towards having that race at the end that's exciting because you're playing teams from your own division.
It is fun at the end.
Over and over again.
Right.
Because it's usually the top couple teams, they'll face each other 6 to 10 times there right in August and September.
Right.
And that'll decide the playoff race a lot of the time.
Right. See, that part is fun. It's almost like I just need to skip the middle and just get to the end. But the thing is, who do you think now in the AL East? Do you think any team's really going to separate themselves, or do you just think it's going to be right at the end again?
I think that comes down to what kind of teams each team ends up being. I mean, right now, the first series, the Yankees looked terrible against the Orioles. They managed to steal a game within the series, but that lineup is completely boom or bust. You have a couple guys in Andujar and Judge and Gleyber Torres.
There's a couple of hitters.
There's a couple guys who are real hitters.
Right.
But then the majority of their lineup is it's a Gary Sanchez type player.
Greg Bird.
It's a Greg Bird, a Giancarlo Stanton, where if there's someone on second base, it doesn't matter because it's either going to go over the fence or they're not going to move the runner or do anything productive.
I feel like people just don't understand that. They're just looking at runs scored. I know you saw my tweet earlier today. people are just looking at runs scored and saying, well, we're a great offense. But if you score 14 runs and then you score 0 and you say, well, we average 7 runs a game, we're the best offense in the league, I disagree with that. I think if you can't score in any other way, then you're really limiting yourself. And once the pitching gets good, and it will, you're not facing 4 starters and 5 starters. You're not seeing any of that. Even if you ever did, those guys have short leashes, and they're going to bring out top-level relievers all the way from the 3rd on. You're not going to be seeing. There's not going to be 92-mile-an-hour 4 seams. You're not going to see any of that. And the guys who can grind at bats, the Lorenzo Cains, the Christian Yelich, those type players who are even like the Miguel Andujars, you want them up. For whatever reason, he's hitting like 7th. But he's like their best. They, like you said, they really only have like 2 or 3 hitters in their lineup.
Yeah,
like guys you want up in with the guy. Like basically when it's time to decide the game, you don't want those big boppers up there.
Yeah, and I mean the Yankees are a team that they have a playoff ace. Tanaka is a playoff ace, and we'll see what happens with Severino and some of the other guys in the rotation where they're at by the end of the season. Their bullpen, they're going to have to figure out their roles and where they're going to pitch guys within that bullpen, because when you're running out Ottavino and Chapman and a bunch of other closers, and Zach Britton, in positions where
you got to check a lot of egos.
I mean, yeah, there's egos that are involved, and you got to figure out how that works together and how you manage the innings within that bullpen, because those 3 guys are going to be crucial to any kind of postseason run. Well, the Yankees, you got to get there first,
right?
And you have 162 games to play, so how they use their bullpen throughout the season will really affect not only where they finish in the standings, but even if they make the playoffs, how ready they are to pitch in the playoffs.
So what's your prediction?
Well, I think it's most likely. I think the Red Sox are still in a position to make some moves, and I think their offense is so good, it's so dominant, and they do have that consistent type offense where they have a bunch of hitters in the lineup. I mean, you're scared of Mookie Betts, you're scared of JD Martinez, Benintendi.
Their best players are the players you do not want up with 2 outs and the guy on second base.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys in that lineup that are hitters, and so I think that team still over the course of the regular season is going to be able to score enough runs to beat most teams. I mean, there's definitely concern with Chris Sale after a bad first outing.
How hard was he throwing?
He was around high 92 point something. I mean, that was his average fastball, didn't get over 94.
Well, this time last year he was throwing 99, 100 miles an hour.
Well, that was in the middle of the season. He went up to 97 was his average.
Yeah, he was just gunning it.
That's when he was unhittable, and then he had the shoulder issue, and he hasn't been the same since the shoulder issue. He got the job done in the playoffs for sure. I mean, he was definitely effective. He closed it out.
They gave him that break though. That was one thing that was huge, and you can't really plan. Maybe they can, but the Red Sox had a huge lead in the division. And if they don't have that this year, you can't allow Chris Sale to just sit for 2-3 weeks.
It's going to be highly contested, and I think the Rays will be right in there pushing both those teams that finished 1-2 last year. But I think in the end, the Red Sox, my prediction is the Red Sox are still able to hold it out just because their offense is so good.
Well, I'm pro spending money, and I feel like a lot of people are, but I don't want to see the Rays win the division spending $55 million, because it's almost like a blueprint for just being cheap and siding with the owners, because they can say, look what we did. We have all these guys under control, and if they need to get paid, we'll let them walk. We'll pay them on arbitration, but $10 million is really nothing. The salary is only getting up. Their payroll is only getting into the 50s, so they can afford to throw Blake Snell $10 million a year. Like that's not really too much to ask. So, I mean, I predicted on Twitter. I think I said the Red Sox just because I didn't want Yankees Twitter getting all over me for, you know what I mean, just for saying I'm biased. But it's just, to me, it's just a toss-up. I can't really the Red Sox pitching is just horrendous.
It's really bad.
Their starting rotation really isn't that great.
It's okay. Their bullpen, they lost a lot in their bullpen. They didn't bring back Kimbrel. They lost Joe Kelly.
They rake in a small park.
Yeah, and they're gonna throw Evaldi into the starting rotation. So it's a lot different look team this year.
Right. So with that, we'll move into the AL Central. We're gonna talk very little about the AL Central. But so far, we said that the Indians should be able to maybe cruise. Maybe the Twins can overtake them. But again, these teams really aren't ready they're not really ready for showtime. So what do you think about this division?
I think, well, you saw it in the offseason that the Indians were almost heading towards were kind of going into rebuild mode because they were shopping Kluber around, and I mean they're trying to pick up pieces that will make them successful down the road. While Lindor is still an amazing player, and Jose Ramirez is still an amazing player for them. But with Lindor being out for a large chunk at the beginning of the season, that's really going to affect their offense and make life difficult for the Indians here for a couple months. They're going to really have to rely on Kluber and Trevor Bauer to kind of carry the team along with Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
Because they kind of have this core where it's a very strong core, but everything else is kind of floating off, and
they've been allowed to do that for a while.
Yeah,
because the teams like the
terrible.
Twins and the White Sox and the Tigers, they were all rebuilding, so they can beat up on all those teams and really collect their wins within the division and just get your way all the way up to the top. And then they were in trouble once they got to the playoffs. But I feel like we're seeing a little bit of that again this year.
Yeah.
But the Twins are really the only other team that can give them a run for their money.
Yeah, the Twins have an interesting team, and they have Jose Barrios, who he started off really well this season. He went 7 2/3 and gave up 0 runs with 10 strikeouts. And if he's going to be a guy that's like that, a definite ace in this league, he gives them some option. He gives them a win every 5 days.
He gives them what Bauer's doing.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at a guy who, if he dominates, that's going to really help that team stay. I mean, you can stay competitive in that division with one dominant starter, essentially, because you're going to win, even if you're winning about half your games, and then you have one dominant starter, that turns into you're right there with the Indians for this division because it's just so poor.
Right.
The Royals aren't good, and it's just there isn't this big push to where you're going to have to compete like you are in the AL East. It's just not there.
Yeah, Twins Twitter is just harassing me about.
There's a
Twins Twitter. It's the same people talking about the Vikings that for whatever reason every year, and they're like, "This is our year. This is our year." You might not be wrong, but at the same time, right now you're not ready to compete at that level. So it's yes, you can make it to the playoffs, and yeah, that is exciting. So I wouldn't deny them of that. I think they really do have a chance to give them a run for their money, and you're gonna really be able to beat up on teams like the White Sox. I think people are overhyping the White Sox so far. I think they're still too young.
Yeah, they're just not there yet. I mean, they're a team that's in that they're trying to follow all those teams that were really bad for a long time and then start. They're kind of in that first year where like, okay,
Astros mode.
We expect to be better, but they didn't land Machado, and that's really going to affect their ability to be an offensive team, and they're just not quite there yet. They're coming for the future for sure, but the White Sox and the Tigers are not going to be good. It's just they're going to be in rebuild. They're in the middle of rebuild mode as well. So there's a couple teams in that division where you can just feast on them. I mean, you play 72 division games in each division, and so there's a lot
That's
of
a lot of wins.
There's a lot of wins that
the
Twins and the Indians can kind of rely on to carry them towards the end of the season.
Right. So now we have got the AL West. And we saw Seattle got off to a really good start. They almost blew it against the Red Sox, but all in all, they still came out winning in a high-scoring game, a lot of home runs. They look great, but I feel like Houston, no matter what, even though they lost a ton, I know they lost Keuchel, they lost Morton, and they really didn't have much money to spend in that rotation, even though everyone's got money to spend. Houston's going to be able to swing. They're going to be able to swing their way to a division title, I think. I don't think Seattle's good enough yet, and they're definitely haven't gotten it figured out in the bullpen. Now they got rid of Diaz, which obviously was expected. The Diaz was just lights out. Now they're going to be scratching and clawing just to get a lead, and once you get that lead, it's like watching the Braves. You've done all this work just to have the lead, just for them to blow it. You don't win titles that way. You don't win division titles. You don't hang banners that way. So I see it being too much to overcome for Seattle, and I think Oakland again. The Angels, they're not really ready, especially with losing Ohtani, and so I just think the Astros are just gonna walk to this one.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this division, and the Mariners are off to their typical hot start at the beginning of the season.
Are they ever bad?
They're never bad at the beginning of the season.
They're never bad at the beginning.
They show up and they're ready to go. Whatever they do down here in Arizona.
Then they tell me about the park and then the food.
Yeah,
I'm like,
They're ready to go from the from the start. But
always.
then it's a long, slow decline into the summer, and they start playing worse and worse.
They usually hang on though. Like they hang on until mid-season. And they start talking about the deadline.
But that's what you're talking about is they hang on. They're kind of in there, and they get to the deadline, but then it just falls off in August and September. And they showed that they didn't believe in their own team when they traded Robinson Cano. They let Nelson Cruz go. They got rid of Edwin Diaz. I mean, those aren't moves for a team that says we want to win right now. That's moves for a team that says, okay, we're going to reset. I mean, they have an interesting lineup with Malik Smith and Mitch Haniger, Domingo Santana, and D. Gordon, because that's a lineup that can manufacture some runs. But they're starting rotation with Marco Gonzalez, Kikuchi over from Japan, Mike Leake, King Felix, and Wade LeBlanc. I mean, that's not a starting rotation that you expect to hold up in the AL West against Houston. I mean, Houston's going to feast off the back half of that rotation for sure, and maybe even the top half of the rotation.
Right.
I just don't see sustained success from the Mariners this year.
And neither do they.
No.
So with that, I think we both are in agreement that the Astros are just they're gonna outswing. I don't care what start. I don't care. They can start out 15-1, whatever it is. That you can put them on SportsCenter all you want and complain that they're on late and we're not watching them. They're just not ready yet. And I think they did some good things with the trade. I think they actually got good return. But that kind of stuff is going to be ready in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it's not a win now move. And that, I mean, when you still have Houston, they show up to the park and they say, okay, we're going to run out Springer, Bregman, Altuve, and Correa.
Oh, they rake
in a row.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
That's as potent as it gets. Those are 4 hitters in a row that no one wants to deal with. And then they have a decent starting rotation. They definitely lost some, but when you have Verlander and Garrett Cole at the top, you're not hurting there. And then the bullpen will be a question mark, but that's been a question mark for the last few years, and
that's a question mark for everybody this year.
Yeah, it's just every team is struggling with their bullpen for the most part, outside of maybe the Yankees. I mean, there isn't a dominant bullpen out there that you're like, okay, this is surefire. The Brewers were closer, but after
they just fell apart.
Yeah, after losing, you lose Knievel, and it's not going to be Jeffress. You don't know, so it's not the same.
Right. So now that we were just getting a little sneak peek into the NL, we're going to finally get into the heated discussions of the NL East. So you're a Braves fan. Obviously, you've been a Braves fan for a long time. I don't know for whatever. I think I just followed somebody else, whatever they said. Then I said the Nationals win the division. They have a lot of young guys in their lineup. They're going to have to carry a lot of the weight. They're going to really need to perform. Even though the pitching is going to be good, their bullpen still isn't good. No. It's never been good. Basically, the entire Harper era was bad pitching on the back half, and they didn't address that. And now that you've got guys that really have to perform in the rotation because the lineup is not, I don't care what they say. They can say whatever they want about Harper's style and that they're going to grind more for runs. They're not as good of a team without Bryce Harper.
No.
I don't care what Victor Robles is. He's not Bryce Harper. So I actually, once I watched this weekend and I saw the Phillies, I was just watching the game and I remember thinking, okay, this is a solid hitter. Okay. Wow. Okay. Really? And then all of a sudden, you're just realizing they're like 5, 6, 7 deep of dudes that are just raking. They're catcher rakes. All of a sudden, Jake Arrieta is slide stepping and dudes are getting hosed. I said, wait a minute, I haven't seen Jake Arrieta hold a runner in his life.
No.
And now all of a sudden, so I'm supposed to believe that JT Realmuto isn't that good. From what I've watched, he literally looks like Pudge Rodriguez back there.
Yeah, I don't know where that would have come from because they showed the stats tonight. He has the best pop time of any catcher in the major leagues over the past year. So he's the best thrower in the league. Well,
and just happens to rake.
Yeah, and he's also the best hitting catcher in the entire league.
It's a joke.
The summary is that the Phillies have the best catcher in the league.
I don't know.
They made a trade to acquire the best catcher, and I
don't know which McCutchen they decided to sign because the first ball he hit this year, I said, well, who the hell is this? Because I haven't seen this McCutchen in 3 years. He literally hit a ball 30 rows deep in the left center field. That's a bomb in Philly. And it's not warm out there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their lineup and it's just absolutely stacked. They have so many options. They have so many versatile offensive players that they did it was almost. I mean, they had the best offseason out of anyone by far. Out of their, it's not even close.
Gene Segura, they added a bunch of good players.
You had JT Realmuto in a trade. You pick up Gene Segura, and then you pick up Andrew McCutchen. Which even if he's average Andrew McCutchen, well, he's still going to be.
He's replacing Reese. Do people understand? He's replacing Reese Hoskins and allowing Reese to move back to the position that he wants to play. So he doesn't have to worry about defense anymore. He can just strictly show up and have a DH feel to the game. He's going to hit better. Now that he's protecting Harper, we've seen it already a few times this weekend. They were walking the bases loaded to get to Reese. They did it again today after he hit a grand slam last night. And they just do it over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, Harper is starting to get pitched to a little differently, which he's never done. Zimmerman didn't drive them to pitch Harper differently, and now Harper's getting into the mix. So really, like I don't know who's up there in the front office, but whoever's the GM of the Phillies is just doing an amazing job. He just really just stacked this lineup. Defensively, they're just a million times better. So I mean, I've been really impressed with Philly. So I'm totally changing course on that pick, and I'm going to Philly because I think Atlanta. Like, no offense, but like Atlanta just didn't add enough. Like we've been begging them to add relievers. Kimbrel's he's on the free agent list, and maybe you can give him a higher annual value, get him in there so you can actually secure some wins at the end of the game. They still don't budge. I'm still waiting to figure out when are the Braves actually going to invest in their bullpen to actually separate themselves so they can win a division, because it's been a while.
Well, they won last year,
right? But it's like once they get there,
consistent success. Yeah, they didn't make any investment within their bullpen, and now you can look at it and say, okay, well, Minter's out to start the season, and Darren O'Day is out to start the season. You have Vizcaíno on the back end, who's a pretty good pitcher. Venters can handle a lefty, but at the same time, that's still not improving the bullpen to the point where anyone's scared of that, and it's not like the starting rotation can carry the Braves. I mean, they're young too. There's certain teams where, like the Nationals, where they're going to lean on their starting rotation a little more to carry the pitching staff, and then try to pick their spots with the bullpen. But with the Braves, you have Fultonevich, great starting pitcher. He's going to be an ace for them. He does a great job. But then after that, there's a bunch of question marks. Kevin Gausman, he pitched pretty well for the Braves last year, but I mean, he hasn't been great historically.
He was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, exactly. Historically, he wasn't very good for the Orioles. Nothing you can rely on. Yeah, Sean Newcomb, he's one of the worst strike throwers in the entire league. He's got good stuff, but you can't really rely on him at this point.
Run up the pitch count. Now you need relievers.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're running out a couple rookies in Bryce Wilson and Kyle Wright to start the season in the rotation. Max Fried will probably see some time in the rotation here.
I was just about to ask about Max Fried because I know he's got the great curveball, which you've seen firsthand.
Yeah.
But it's like...
I saw it.
Yeah, but it's like they have a lot of guys they're relying on that are young to basically spray some cologne on the bullpen, when I feel like the Braves, since we've seen the amount of money they're spending this year, I think they can maybe afford to spend short term. Well, so why not?
Yeah, the fact of the matter is they're not paying hardly anyone on their team right now. Their salary's around $110 million.
They got Markakis on a discount.
Markakis is on a discount. Freddie Freeman is cheap for Freddie Freeman. I mean, he's still making over $20 million, but he's one of the best players in the entire league, and you're not having to pay him that much.
Right.
So the biggest charge right now is probably Josh Donaldson, who they brought in the offseason, which, I mean, can we talk about their lineup real quick? Why is Josh Donaldson hitting second? Can we get Acuna up into second in the lineup? Because I want that guy hitting as often as possible.
I think they're just staring at RBIs and saying, oh, we just put our best RBI guy at fourth instead of worrying about putting the best hitters further up the lineup.
Yeah, well, guess what? Freddie has proven that he can hit without great protection. I mean, Markakis was very good last year, but no one's terrified of Nick Markakis. He only hit 12 home runs, 14 home runs, somewhere in there. So it's not like Freddie had tremendous protection last year.
Right.
So why wouldn't you want Acuna to be protected and then have Freddie Freeman be the one who they shift, and then he goes against the shift because he's a great hitter, and that's how you play it. So I mean, I think the Braves have a ton of flaws, and it's going to be difficult until they get all the pitchers back to really see what the team's going to be like.
What are they waiting for?
Well, I honestly couldn't tell you, because when you win the division and you make your first playoff appearance, that's kind of what the Cubs did. They made their first playoff appearance, and then all of a sudden they said, okay, time to go all in. Let's bring in all the starting pitchers.
And they went in immediately.
Let's get Jake Arrieta. Let's do all these things that are going to make us World Series contenders immediately.
Right.
And so why aren't the Braves taking that step and saying, okay, time to be World Series contenders?
Already got the young core guys.
Yeah,
Acuna is literally like Andrew Jones. The dude rakes.
Yeah, the core is completely there. The lineup is there, and it was time to invest in the bullpen, invest in an ace starting pitcher. I mean, trade some of these young guys for Jacob deGrom, or trade for bring in Patrick Corbin. Do something where you're making an impact within the division, because obviously everyone else went ahead and armed themselves with a lot of great players, and the Braves.
They're still waiting for just the perfect match. Yeah, I don't know what they're waiting for.
But they're just not spending money. That's what it comes down to. So I wanted to have the Braves winning the division, but then, I mean, this might be an overreaction. I watched the first weekend and I said, well, there's no way they can beat the Phillies.
Because they're not even healthy.
If Arrieta's decent, if they're going to run out, I mean, Nola's going to go out there. He's a dominant ace. I mean, they have the pitching staff that will hold up, and their bullpen's shaky, but whose isn't? So I think
they're
the
deficient
Phillies
in every area the Braves are also deficient in.
Yeah, I think the Phillies are just way ahead of where the Braves are at overall. And then there's kind of this debate of, okay, well, where are the Mets? Where are the Mets? They have this great starting rotation. Well, I don't even necessarily see it that way. I see they have Jacob deGrom, who's he's the best pitcher in the game right now. Him and Scherzer, they're gonna give you 7 innings of 1 or 2 runs given up. That's incredible at this stage of baseball in 2019.
They're just gonna dominate.
But Syndergaard, where he's a little bit removed from all the success he had a couple years ago, and now you kind of need to see him have a bounce back year. And after that, I don't know. I'm not excited about Zach Wheeler. I'm not excited about Steven Matz. So if I had to pick, well, who's the best starting rotation, I'm going to go with the Nationals, where they were running out Scherzer, Corbin, and Strasburg. Strasburg struggled a little bit last year, but I have more faith in those 3 guys than the first 3 for the Mets.
Oh, yeah.
And the offenses for those teams, the Mets have shown a good offense so far. Peter Alonso might be a great player there at first base, and the Mets have a solid lineup, but I think the Nationals can match anything that the Mets run out there.
Right.
So the way I see this division right now is that the Phillies are ahead of everybody, and then the Braves and Nationals are going to be fighting for that second spot, potentially a wild card spot, and then the Mets are still going to end up in 4th place, and the Marlins are just way in the basement. No one's worried about them.
Oh God.
Way in the basement.
Yeah,
I think they want Yelich back.
Oh yeah, it was such a bad trade.
What a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, we knew the trades were going to be a joke, because once Yelich was gone and Real Muto was on the block and they started asking for Acuna in a trade, we knew they were just taking their last breaths and throwing their haymakers while they were still standing. We knew the trades were going to be a joke. They just were going to be. And they don't know what they're doing up there. And it's obviously unfortunate, because we were seeing pictures of their crowd.
There's no one in the stands.
It looked like a high school state championship.
No, it looked like an Oakland A's game.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. It was like a complete joke, to the point where they need to move the entire team and just shift them somewhere else and just get rid of all the players.
Yeah,
it was just sad.
There's a couple AAA teams in the major leagues right now, and the Marlins are one of them.
And unfortunately for business, it just doesn't matter. You just stink for 4 years, and we just stink, and then all of a sudden you just hit on a few draft picks, and then you just sign 1 or 2 guys. Next thing you know, you're good. And that's just what the owners have realized. And I think that the teams that are the bottom feeders, they're going to have to start spending just a little bit now, because eventually the players are going to hold out and force these guys to at least have a spending bottom. Like, they need a floor to how much money they're spending. Like, because it's going to be unacceptable at some point.
Can't get a floor without a cap, though.
Oh, I know.
We're never going to have a cap.
I know. But it seems like they're going to have to step in at some point and say that you can't spend $50 million. Like, maybe if you spend 85, like, okay. But $50 million is like a joke. Like, you're not spending anybody.
I just don't see it happening. I think baseball's fine with the way their economic system works, and they're going to let the owners own the teams the way they are.
What do you think the players will do?
The players can strike and they can do what they want, but really that it's not going to affect. I don't think it's going to affect minimums of teams. I think it's going to affect how the contracts are structured and how you might make a
limit the
little
length,
more,
maybe.
make more money at the beginning of the contract rather than trying to make it at the end, like we've
Right.
talked about in the past.
Because I think we'd be fine if that happened.
I don't think you're going to see all of a sudden see the A's and Rays and Pirates required to spend money. I think
the solution maybe is just we're eventually just going to get those teams out of those places or out of that ownership, because it's the owners really. Certain owners are just not going to spend money no matter what situation or what player. I mean, Matt Chapman is just unbelievable. Nothing in the A's DNA will ever pay Matt Chapman in any way.
No, he'll be gone. Whenever his arbitration runs up.
Exactly.
They'll
so
trade him.
Right. So it's really an ownership gig of who they're going to pay. And there's certain teams that have decided. You've got the Red Sox have decided they're just going to spend money. So really, I had just a toss up in the NL East. I really had Philly or the Nationals. I picked the Nationals, but after this weekend again, the Phillies just are too stacked. Like their lineup is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And their starting rotation is good enough, I think, to be close enough to the Nationals to where they can outswing them. So I will stand now with Philly, especially after this weekend. It's ridiculous. So now we're moving to the NL Central again. Another tightly contested division. I chose the Cardinals originally this morning. Milwaukee's having injury problems in their bullpen. I think that might be a serious problem. But again, it's a division where really pitching is nowhere to be found, including starting rotation. Milwaukee starting rotation is bad. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Chicago, St. Louis, it's all bad. So really, you're just having a battle of the lineups to see who's going to win this division. And if you look across the board, St. Louis rakes, Milwaukee rakes. And when you look 1 through 9, I just think Milwaukee's deeper. I know they added Paul Goldschmidt, and that's great. And Matt Carpenter and Paul Goldschmidt back-to-back is awesome. It's really good. But when you look at Milwaukee and you look at what Christian Yelich is doing, this dude is like next level. He's legitimately up there with like Mike Trout, Mookie Betts. The dude is just an alien. So I think I'm going to switch my pick to Milwaukee. I'm switching all types of picks.
Flipper, flopper. He can't make up his mind.
Oh, yeah. I'll be on Chicago in 2 months.
Well, yeah.
So what do you think about this division?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the starting rotations. I think that the Cardinals may have the best starting rotation out of anyone, but it's just a bunch of wildly average starting rotations. You look at the Cubs, they don't have better than a 3-starter on the staff. It's a bunch of 3 starters. There's no one that can come. I mean, Lester might show up one day, and you've seen this. Yeah, vintage Lester. He'll come out and dominate. Like that will happen.
And then he'll throw the ball into the stands, picking it off.
And then you look at the Brewers, they don't have a lot. Chastain's up there as their ace right now, and that's no one's scared of that. The Cardinals, Mikolas, Flaherty, but then it just drops off a mountain with Hudson, Waka, and Wainwright. I mean, so you're right. The pitching rotations are just completely average. So this is just an arms race on the offensive side of the ball, and the Brewers have a tremendous offense when you go through it. I mean, you see these teams sacrificing defense big time in this division in order to get bats onto the field.
Yeah, they had Travis Shaw out there.
Yeah, Travis Shaw's he's at third base, and Moustakas has made the move to second base. And meanwhile, the Cardinals have moved Carpenter back to third base, where he is terrible.
Yeah,
he is a bad third baseman, and it was nice for them. Well, now you have Goldschmidt at first, so Martinez is back out in the outfield, which is get him a map.
Yep, and they don't care. They just don't care, because it's just going to come down to you're not seeing any aces. You're really just going to be running up scores. There's going to be a lot of 8-7, 8-5 games in this division, and I feel like the Milwaukee Brewers feel confident that even with Knievel being out at the end of the game, they can just outslug any team, especially in that park.
That's somewhere where they're definitely a team where they're going to try to get Kimbrel onto the roster. And no one wants to give Kimbrel the years that he's wanting. I mean, he wants about 5 years, 6 years, somewhere in there. And no one wants to give him that. He's old, he's getting older. And as a velocity guy, his effectiveness will only decrease as he gets older.
Well, he'll be in a walker in like 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, in 3 years, he might be.
But if the later that goes, that Kimbrel sweepstakes, the more worth it it becomes to say, okay, we're going to be in the playoffs. We think we definitely have a definite shot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this guy in here so we can solidify our back end.
Right.
Because Josh Hader's the best reliever in the game by 1.5 miles right
Absolutely.
now. There's no one that even approaches him. And that's from a stuff standpoint, and he can give you 3 innings of immaculate pitching.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the other day he threw 9 pitches, which were 9 fastballs, and struck out the side, and it's like no one else is doing that.
We were sitting there questioning what is wrong with these hitters. Like, what could you possibly be seeing?
He's just incredibly dominant in just everything about him. So
right.
The Brewers have an outstanding offense, and the Cardinals also have a pretty potent offense. I mean, Goldschmidt showed up and hit 4 home runs the first week to match Yelich. He hit 3 in one game. It was the welcome to St. Louis, and Diamondback fans are just dying.
I hate living here. I hate living here. Yeah, we've got the Phoenix Suns. Especially with it's a joke.
The contract that he ended up signing the extension to, where it was like, oh, you couldn't have afforded to give him $140 million or whatever it was over a span of years. I mean, it was a complete joke that Paul Goldschmidt's not in Arizona anymore. But it's an arms race, but I also see it so where the Brewers are going to be the team that is able to outslug everybody else in the division. Mm. You look at the Cubs, they have some great players. They have some great names, and they're definitely dangerous. You know, Rizzo, Baez, Bryant.
Bryant should be a lot better this year. Last year he was just compromised with his shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they definitely have a potent lineup, and they'll be right there to the end. But they definitely don't have the bullpen that some of the other definitely the Brewers feature that with when they can run out Hader, and then I don't even know if they can match Jordan Hicks for the Cardinals.
I bet my last dollar Milwaukee, even if they don't get Kimbrel, which I think they will, I think they'll still make a trade for whoever's hot. Whoever's hot, they're going to go get somebody.
That might be what decides this division, to be honest, is the deadline once again, is that they're going to have, all 3 of these teams are probably going to be within striking distance of each other at the end of July, and they're going to have to decide, okay, what do we want to mortgage on our future to make a run here now, because they're all going to be right there. And so it'll be interesting to see who makes the splashy deal to go steal a reliever from a team that is out of contention.
Right. So with that, we'll shift into the NL West. I think I tweeted earlier this morning that the Dodgers were going to win the division, but at the same time, the Dodgers I'm flipping again.
He's flipping.
The Dodgers really squealed into the playoffs last year, and Colorado, again, they're gonna rake in their own park. Again,
they all get the Coors bonus.
Oh my God, they're just flipping balls.
Look at the home road splits, people.
Yeah, they always see, this is what bothers me about Colorado is, like, I'm giving them credit for winning. They're a good team, but they're literally flipping balls out of this park. And people will say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're really going to discuss Coors Field." Yes, I'm going to discuss Coors Field. Daniel Murphy this year, he's now on the team. He's now a Rocky. He will rake this year. Just so happened he's going to rake career year. Gerardo Parra, another player who I'm here in Arizona. I used to watch him all the time. Good, solid pro. Give you a professional at bat. He's a Gold Glove defender. That was really his calling card.
Yeah,
he was a Gold Glover.
He could throw really
he had
well.
a cannon. Soon as he gets to Colorado, this dude is just batting champ, 370. Yeah. Like, they're talking about him like he's Ichiro Suzuki. It's like, give us a break. But they do have some good top of the rotation guys, and their bullpen guys have seemingly figured out. I don't know how they did it, but they figured out how to pitch in Colorado, which is great.
Well, they're going to need a big bounce back, because they definitely figured out towards the end of the last year they were an absolute mess at the beginning.
Oh, they're horrible.
They're going to need Wade Davis to be a lot better this season. But they definitely, obviously, getting into the playoffs, they found some things that help them be successful, and maybe they'll carry it over into this year for sure.
And I know that the Dodgers, I feel like the Dodgers got better, but I don't think they got better in the areas they needed to get better in. I feel like their rotation took a step back, which they needed some extra rotation help. And I think a full season of Walker Buehler will help a little bit. But I think as far as he's bringing him forward, Kershaw's bringing him even further back. He's going to give him less starts than he ever has. And we knew that. I feel like $30 million this year was going to be a bad investment for them when he's probably going to give them, 15, 18 starts, and their bullpen really can't sustain carrying the load for a few months.
No,
that's just something
not.
that they can't do. They didn't add some dominant guy in relief. They added Joe Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel very confident about the Dodgers in the back end. So I feel like Colorado really can get into a slugfest with LA. And we're really getting to a battle of the lineups. And when I look at Colorado and I look at the Dodgers, if they had a game they had to play in Colorado, I feel like Colorado's lineup is just going to be flipping balls out of the park. Because, again, they're one of those, everybody drives the ball, everybody's scoring runs, everybody's dangerous. And the Dodgers are the same way. They're just not as good at it. So I just feel like the Dodgers don't have a good enough lineup to out-hit Colorado. And I feel like Colorado really, in a way, I feel like their top end of the rotation guys can out-pitch the top end of the rotation guys in LA. So I'm really worried for LA this year, which is the first year in a while I've said that. I've always said they'd cakewalk. But I think this is the year for the Colorado Rockies.
See, and this is one where we definitely disagree. Because I'm not as high on the Rockies. I definitely think that they got more dangerous. They added Daniel Murphy, who is going to be out for a while now. He broke his finger.
Yep.
And their starting rotation has done a better job. You feature John Gray, you feature Kyle Freeland. They're definitely solid pros who figured out how to pitch decently well at Coors Field. Which
they had to miss some bats. They had to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. They finally got Charlie Blackmon out of center field. Now they replaced him with Ian Desmond, so I don't know how much that actually helps your defense. But and defense does matter in Colorado because you're playing in an absolute yard. There's so much space out there. But I see Corey Seager coming back for the Dodgers, and I see now you can have Muncy out there. You can have Cody Bellinger out there. They added A.J. Pollock, who is, I think that wins the center field position in that case. Justin Turner's still out there.
LA should be a lot better defensively.
Yeah, I see a bunch of guys who are definitely capable of playing. They are a little bit of that boomer bust style offense. They still feature Jock Peterson in the leadoff spot. He's out there trying to just hit a home run.
I can't stand that crap.
Yeah.
I cannot watch that.
Nothing hurts my soul more than watching Jock Peterson have success. I think I really don't like watching it, but I think when you add an AJ Pollock, who is a more hitter type person, you have Justin Turner, who is a hitter. He's not just trying to hit the ball over the fence every time. I think that's something that helps out their lineup. Ryu has actually, I think, made some strides as a starting pitcher over the last year, and I think if Walker Buehler can make that jump and become the ace that we saw at the end of the season last year, it's going to hurt not having Kershaw for sure. Whether he's good in the playoffs or whatever is going on during the regular season, he's giving you great numbers no matter what.
Right. One thing I have to consider is that Kershaw, even when he was at his peak, he never performed in the postseason at any point. So if they miss him, it's like, what's changed? So, and they've always gotten that far without him. So I feel like if they can get anything from somebody, then maybe that'd be
look at a guy like Julio Urias, who maybe he can make that jump. He's supposed to be one of the best prospects in baseball over the last couple years, and we haven't really seen that from him yet.
Is he still 12 or whatever? They've talked about his age every time I see him. They say he's 19, he's 20, he's 21.
He's still very young. Yeah, he's Devin Booker.
Yeah. He really is the Devin Booker of Major League Baseball. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of hearing the age.
I definitely hear what you're saying about the Rockies, and I think that they're a team who will obviously be there for the division towards the end, but I think home field will really matter. If you're playing in Colorado, that definitely favors the Rockies for sure. But if it's outside of Colorado, then I think the Dodgers definitely still have the advantage with their lineup and just some different things, the back end of their bullpen with Kenley Jansen. I still think if he can bounce back, I think they're still a little more solid overall as a roster.
Right. So, hopefully the division's close. We need more close battles. The NL has got a ton of close battles, but we need to make up for some of the races in the AL. So hopefully...
Don't sleep on the Padres. They add Manny Machado, add Fernando Tatis. They're going to make a little run here. They might not have enough this year. The starting rotation, I don't actually know who any of them are, so I can't really...
Their ace looks good. Wait, their ace looks like He looks like a cowboy.
Yeah, I saw him coming in.
Yeah, it looked like
game.
Red Dead Redemption showing up.
Yeah.
I was like, who the heck is this guy? I knew he was going to be good as soon. If you show up looking like that, you've got to be good.
That's a team you're going to want to look out for in the next couple of years for sure. And I think they will make a little push here. No one's worried about the Diamondbacks. They're in fake rebuild mode
I'm
right
worried.
now.
They have $2 hot dogs this year. And I'm excited about that because that means I can go to the game.
Well, tickets will be $5 to get in.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a good experience for us in Arizona. Besides the winning part,
Right?
Don't
yeah,
count
it's
on
disappointing.
That. But overall, I think that division's still probably headed to the Dodgers. I think they hang on again, 2-time NL defending champs. So I think they might have another.
They always
year
seem to find a way.
Yeah.
So with that said, guys, leave your predictions in the comment section. And we will get back to you guys on that and let you know if they suck or not. But make sure you hit the like button below and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Thanks.